But this psalmist gives us some insight on what a spiritual pursuit or the spiritual mission to our blessed or happy place ought to entail. It says, blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked. When you start looking at this particular saying with a little more depth, what we understand, even some translations say that blessed is the one who does not follow after the counsel or the advice of wicked persons. This particular instruction is about influence. Who is it that we allow to influence us? Because the truth of the matter, this mission towards our blessed or happy place requires of us that we consider our influencers. Tell somebody, consider your influencers. Let me just say this, just because they're pretty, just because they're handsome, just because they got some money, just because they have 26 degrees, just because they driving nice, just because they know how to use big words eloquently does not mean that they are to be influencers in your life. And some of us have been deceived by surface things and allowed folks to influence us who should have never had any influence in the first place, because those who influence us are the ones that we listen to. There's a difference between just hearing somebody and listening to them. Anybody know what I'm talking about in here? The parents, we know what it's like. We ask children, do you listen? I heard you. But are you listening? Because there's a difference between hearing and listening, because those who influence us, we actually listen to. And we have to give careful attention about who we allow to shape our thinking, who we allow to advise us, who we allow to speak to the intimate details in our life. Because truth of the matter, saints of God, even some church folks ought not be speaking to certain areas of your life. Just because they can quote 26 scriptures, that doesn't mean they're necessarily qualified. Everybody's not qualified to speak to the intimate areas of our life. We have to consider our influencers, because here is a hallmark truth. Our influencers will either help us or hinder us on our mission to our blessed or our happy place. Let me say it one more time. Who we allow to influence us will either help us or hinder us on our journey to our blessed or happy place. And let me just tell you the truth. Don't discount the people that God has used to influence us in our life. I told him this morning when I was in grad school, I was taking a class called Contemporary Interpretations of Jesus. Wonderful class. That particular lecture was on the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Our professor, who I love dearly, was lecturing, and he began to talk about the influencers in Dr. King's life. He went on this diatribe about Gandhi, and then he talked about all of these theologians whose names I could not even spell. He talked about all folks all over the world. And here I am, sitting at Harvard University, in a lecture hall with 200 folks, only 5 of us black, and I got unsettled. Because with the exception of Gandhi, the only other names that I heard as influencers of Dr. King were white men. I didn't want to. So I'm sitting there turning in my seat, and I knew better because I graduated from Tennessee State University, and I took classes that emphasized the teachings of Dr. King and Malcolm X, and I just couldn't sit there. So finally, with my hand shaking, I put my hand up, and I said, I don't mean no disrespect to you, But now you cannot talk about Dr. King's influences and not talk about his mama and his daddy. You can't talk about Dr. King's influences and not talk about his grandfather. And we wouldn't even know who Dr. King was if it was not for the late Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays from Morehouse College. So you can't talk over there without going over here. Because some of us, let me tell you the truth, it might be some big name people that influence you over there, but you better thank God for great-great-grandmama Sally. You better thank God for Big Mama and Big Daddy and Deacon so-and-so who may not have been able to read. It was because they had a spirituality. They had a connection with God, that even though they didn't have accolades on the wall, they had a relationship with a God who could do something for you when your degree couldn't. Don't you ever discount. Y'all better talk to me in this church today. Even talk about what we witnessed yesterday with Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka playing each other. But see, there's some others, I believe, Sloane Stephens and some others that are playing now, young African-American women. But many of them will speak boldly that their two major influences about wanting to pursue tennis was because of young ladies by the name of Venus and Serena. Never underestimate the power of your influence to encourage somebody else. And let me just talk to the young folk for a minute. Last week, you know, the VMA Awards came on, and they gave Missy Elliott a Lifetime Achievement Award. There are those of us who come from the Missy Elliott generation because she was just bursting on the scene. But here it is, Missy Elliott's influence is still being felt even to this present day by current artists, because people like Ella Mai and Queen Bee, Beyonce, and even Cardi B, and even her, they talk about the fact that their musical creativity is influenced by the genius of a Missy Elliott. Let me tell you something, there is creative genius in each, and y'all better say something to me in this church today. There's creative genius in each and every one of us. I don't care how old you may be, there's still some creative genius in you. In fact, point at somebody and let them know, encourage them, tell them there's creative genius in you. Now find some young person in this sanctuary, point at the young person, point at the college student, tell them there's creative genius in you. And when you live out your creative genius, you influence other people to live out their creative genius, who then in turn influence other folk to live out their own creative genius.